also have to do something about the culture. And so they decided to have a kind of roadshow, and they put article in the internet, and they developed a flyer, and also they decided to choose certain researchers that do a lot of open access publishing and speak through them. Mm-hmm. Because we realize that it's difficult if it's always the library people, talking of open access, nobody listens. Mm-hmm. But if it's your peers, like your co-researchers saying, hey, why don't we do this in open access, it's a completely different story. So we are trying now to identify such researchers, pioneer researchers, and work through them. That's in the case of open access. But in the case of ethics, we even have ambition to develop a kind of competence building program on ethics. So this will be a format where groups can learn to reflect on ethical issues. Mm-hmm. So we are testing it with a small, let's say, middle leadership group. Mm-hmm. So these are people that are in a certain leadership program at Fraunhofer, 60 people. Mm-hmm. And if it goes well, we will try to implement this in the canon of training program that every Fraunhofer researcher has to go through. So for each dimension, we have identified different pathways. Mm-hmm. But that's the challenge we are addressing at the moment.
Uh-huh. Okay. So this mobilization of the actors within the organization is an open issue that you are approaching.
Yes, but we are holding workshops, these long-term transformation workshops at the moment for all the dimensions, and we have already finished 3, mm-hmm. and only missing the societal engagement one. And for these, we have a plan, let's say, how to do it for
Okay. So what are
that works?
In implementing your pilots? What are the main barriers that you are going into in your view?
We are just developing a deliverable on this. We have carried out interviews like you do now with all the dimension people from the dimension is asking exactly this question, and we are at the moment putting it all together in a report. Mm-hmm. I can send it to you as soon as it's ready. I don't have the full overview as the interview results only just come in, mm-hmm. but I already noticed that it's very interesting to see the similarities, because what seems to be the case is that everybody in our organization is running behind deadlines and proposals and contracts. Mm-hmm. And there is no space for reflection and taking a step back and thinking about what are we doing here. And all the dimensions require that. Ethics requires this, and societal engagement requires this, and gender definitely requires this, to question yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you're always running after something under extreme pressure, you are not able to question yourself. This reflexivity, you could call it. It's there's no space for this, and this seems to be the key barrier across all dimensions. Of course, there are specific things. For example, in that gender, these are barriers that are thousands of years old. Mm-hmm. That we have certain societal power structures that are hindering change and stuff. But in a way, I have the feeling that this. And it's also partly in the organization, but also partly in our culture in general. So also we realize that people don't bring this from university, this capacity to question their assumptions, and that's a bit a cross-cutting insight.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there is basically a sort of lack of space, at least I felt there is a feeling that there is no space to re-question everything, but I imagine also this space is not only a mental space, it's also a practical space. You have no time to...
Yeah. It's mental and practical, everything. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not always a willingness, because we see most people we talk to, they know the need of doing this more, but they say, I can't. I have to run to the next thing.
Yeah. I get
I don't know if it's typical for applied research, but I think it's...
Well, consider that in my personal experience, I work on a part-time basis for the university, and I always been in the private research sector, and this is very common in the private research that is, connected to the contract, to the deadline. But from what I see within the university they have their own, they do have a business, a core business. So they have not the same strict deadline for research, but they have teaching that is very important. And teaching means not only that you have to stay with the students, of course, but it asks for a lot of preparatory work, for coordination for the different courses, etc. It's a huge work, and that has this deadlines as well as the funders of a certain research that wants the results, that asks for the results he paid for, and the students in a certain sense ask for the same timeliness, no?
Yeah.
So
indeed,
maybe the type of actors are different, but the request for your time is very strict in any case. So this is.
But also here, at least here in Germany, universities are more and more under pressure to bring in money from other sources, industry and whatever. So we see more and more similar structures than applied research.
Yes, it's a sort of osmosis between organizations. Yes, exactly. So, one interesting aspect of promoting change toward RR&I is negotiation. Because new arrangement, organizational or new approaches to research and innovation request also that all the routines and practices are changed. So you have to find out new agreements with the existing actors on the novelties that are being introduced and practiced. So, and this is something that is somehow invisible but important, because you have to find out the gatekeepers in order to enter certain groups of researchers and to discuss new ideas, because it's not sufficient that the board of directors states something.
Indeed.
Consensus is needed, and diffuse consensus is needed. So, do you agree on this, and do you have example on how it is important or not for your project, for your program of change in your organization?
Absolutely, it's very important, and we negotiate all the time. For example, in ethics,